Here at Church Answers, we love these special edition Burge reports because we do have among us and back on the show the one and only Dr. Ryan Burge. And we like him so much. We like him so much that we named the episode after him. And it's worked. I mean, Ryan, you are so far on the rise. Congrats, man, on all of the eyeballs that you get on your content. We were just talking about that before the show. Doing
Dozens,
really well.
Hundreds of views, guys. Maybe even thousands on a good day.
I think it's hundreds of dozens. I think that's
hundreds
what it
of
is.
dozens of tens of fives. Lots of people.
If you are not tuning into graphsaboutreligion.com, you should be.
Do it.
Because the world is watching and reading the
Tell him
great
Tom sent you.
Burge. And we're just glad to be blessed by his presence here on today's episode. We're going to be talking about higher education and how the more educated you are, the more you attend church, which is kind of counterintuitive. Ryan's got that data. But before we get to that, we want to thank our sponsor. Tithely has been very gracious to sponsor all of these episodes, and they provide churches around the world with software tools to help their ministries thrive. Get this, 40,000 churches. That's the number. 40,000 churches use Tithely for online and text giving. They can help you. At this point, they know what they are doing, and they do it very, very well. So you can sign up for free, and you got that right. It's free. Tithely.com. Tithely's platform comes with no monthly fees and no contracts. So you can start taking donations in just 5 minutes. Again, Tithely.com is the place to go. They're also offering a free report called the State of the Church Giving Report, which has a lot of great data in it. We'll put a link in the show notes to that. But we encourage you to go check out Tithely at Tithely.com.
They're
All
probably
right.
10% of Protestant churches now. They've crossed the 10% threshold.
Yeah. I mean, they're global, but they're in that range.
Yeah, good. I love it. Love it. Thank you, Tithely. Thank you, Ryan Burge, for just being here.
I'm not in 10% of Protestant churches. I can tell you that, guys.
Mm.
I've not even been to 10 Protestant churches in the last year, I don't think. But
Well,
I'm on the
because
way.
you were pastoring.
I was pastoring, and now I'm not. I'm a former pastor in an American Baptist church, so that feels weird.
I'm a former pastor in some other denomination.
The denomination that we will not name. Is that so? Like that's kind of like the Tampa Bay Lightning when we talk about the other team from South Florida. The team we don't mention, the Panthers. We don't say those. It's just the team from South Florida.
Oh, it's kind of
team
like the
formerly known
rivalry,
as-
the college football rivalry in the state of Alabama, where we talk about our rival is from West Georgia. We don't even put them in the state. I think we got something to talk about.
Yeah, we do. Can I give you a weird logistics question, though? Can I still do weddings? I had to ask my denomination. They're like, well, I mean, technically, yeah, because you're still on our clergy file, so you're still clergy in the state of Illinois. So if you want me to marry you guys, just give me an email, and I'll probably say no, but you can try, because I don't like to travel that much when I don't have to.
Listen,
I'm not into
those of
polygamy,
us who
and
are-
I'm not going to divorce.
Those of us who are from the Baptist tribe, I don't need no stinking license to do anything. I can just do what I want, right? There's a whole history there.
You
in
have
America
no
of
authority
Baptists.
over me. We are separated.
Obadiah Holmes got thrown in jail for preaching without a license. That's anti-American. That's our
Yes,
people, guys. That's my
So did
heritage.
James Ireland. Yeah, you know
That's
your
right.
stuff. You know your stuff.
That's right. Church history. Let's go.
All right. So we will not nerd out on church history, but we do have a very important topic for today. Ryan, you've uncovered a correlation, a positive correlation that really applies to all generations, including younger ones, that the more education you get, the more likely you are to attend church. So what's going on? Explain this. Tell me what's happening.
Is wild, right? Like if I'm having a bad
Unexpected.
day and I want to and I want to get some tweets, get some retweets and some clicks to make me feel good, my dopamine going in my brain, this is the graph to put out there because I guarantee you it will go big time. It'll do 100, 200, 500 retweets and everyone comes in. And what's funny is the comments are exactly what you guys just mentioned, which is like, nah, this can't be true. Because like, I think the problem is that we all read a little too much Karl Marx in high school and college. And, Marx is a guy.
I didn't. For the record, I didn't.
I didn't read anything. I read the Communist Manifesto. I went to a Christian college. I think everyone should read the Communist Manifesto, by the way, because it's only like 110 pages. It's actually interesting to think about. But so Marx has this really weird relationship with religion where he says it's the opiate of the people. Like that's what everyone like remembers of Marx when it comes to religion. So it's like dumb people are religious, smart people aren't. Like that's how we've extrapolated out from Marx, which is actually not a fair reading of Marx, by the way, because Marx was anti-religion because he thought religion was a tool for oppression. He had not seen liberation theology yet. So what happened in Central and South America with the Catholic Church, that happened 50 or 75 years after his death. So he had no idea of like religion's ability to liberate people. And even the civil rights movement in America and the progressive era in America were driven by religious sentiments, right? To make people have, less, overtime rules and child labor laws and also, for equal rights. So Marx was against oppressive religion, not all religion. He just didn't have any concept of religion that was not being used to oppress poor, uneducated people and keep them down. But in America today, there is a strong positive relationship between education and church attendance. The people that are the most likely to be in church this Sunday are people with graduate degrees. The people that are the least likely to be in church this Sunday are people with high school diplomas or less. That holds up, and it's been true in the last 15 years of data, all independently of each other. And it's also true amongst older Americans, middle-aged Americans, and young adult Americans. So this is kind of a universal finding. It's not some weird blip in one survey that I did that doesn't show up again. It shows up all the time. We don't know things in social science, but this is definitely in the realm of we have more surety about this than we have about a lot of things in social science.
15 years, Ryan. So is that a marker, or was it developing before then? 15 years, that's new in the scope of history.
Yeah, and I think part of that's a data thing for one, because the data I use is started in 2008, so that's the 15 years thing. If you look back at the GSS, like go back farther, the problem is the share of Americans who were not attending church or never attending church were a very small fraction of America 30 or 40 years ago, and now it's a much larger fraction of America. Mm-hmm. And so it's called like a compositional change. If you were going to be like a non-religious person in 1975, you really needed to be a special kind of person. Because, you were 3%, 5% of America. And now it's easy to be a nun because you're 30% of America. Amongst young people, you're 40% of them, of younger generations. So what's happened is the composition of non-religion has changed over time. I think in some ways it's drawn in people who are lower on the education spectrum, lower on the income spectrum, when really before it was actually people with higher educations back in the day. So this is a really kind of modern phenomenon over the last 20, 25 years that we're seeing that like this educational polarization is actually really important in social science. Like it really divides us on all kinds of metrics, and it clearly divides us in the area of religiosity.
I'll never forget my first few Sundays at First Baptist Church, Murray, Kentucky. Ryan, that's kind of in your area. And
I interviewed for a job at Murray State. They actually offered me a job 10 years ago.
Wow.
So 10 years ago, we would have just missed each other because I was pastoring there from 2009 through 2012, 2013, that time frame. And a lot of professors attended my church. And it was rather intimidating to preach to a congregation that 60, 70%, whatever it is, I don't remember the percentage, probably wasn't quite that high, but it was a significant percentage of the congregation had their PhDs, which made the stand up and shake your hand greeting time rather interesting because everyone was like, hello, doctor, 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 if you know the movie reference.
Airplane.
Don't call me Shirley.
Airplane. No, I think it's is it Spies Like Us? I think that's Spies Like Us.
I think
all right. Well, anyway, I remember Airplane.
So, highly educated church, and it ended up being a great place to shepherd. We had our ups and downs through a few things, and I might have caused them, but that's not the point of today's episode. My point is, it was a town and gown kind of community, small town, but a lot of the people who had higher education went to church.
Mm-hmm.
And that is contrary to a lot of people think, particularly in a college town. Now, let me ask you, Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
why? I know that the data doesn't tell us why,
Yeah.
but you are
But
a
Ryan
professor.
knows. Ryan is omniscient when it comes to data. So
I
Ryan
can give you a good
knows.
guess.
I would love to hear your speculation.
Okay. This is like informed speculation, by the way. It's not like, I'm just randomly throwing things out there. Okay. So here's what we know. There's a strong positive relationship between trust and education. Okay. The more education you have, the more trusting you are of other people. That's called interpersonal trust, meaning like, do I think the guy on the street is going to punch me in the face and steal my stuff, right? People can be trusted. But education is also strongly positively related to institutional trust. So that's like, do you trust banks and unions and the media and big business and that kind of and church, right? So if you think about it this way, now we don't know, by the way, if education drives up trust or if some internal orientation we have both makes us more trusting and more likely to get educated. You get what I'm saying here, right? Like it's a chicken and egg thing. We're not sure how that relationship shakes out. What we do know is educated people are more trusting than less educated people, and that's a fact. Well, guess what religion is? It's an institution, requires a lot of trust, right? Going to a group of people you don't know their motivations, you don't know who they are, you know what the church is like. What educated people realize is there's a lot of value, both intrinsically and extrinsically, to being part of an organization. And they've realized that by how they got through college, got through grad school, and moved on and got a job. So if it helped me here, it's going to help me over here. And that's why I think you see a lot of college professors who go to church, and and by the way, education and belief are actually negatively correlated. Having a certain belief in God actually goes down the more education you have. What you're seeing is a lot of highly educated people are on the fence about belief in God, but see the value in being part of a religious community. And that's why they're there, because they like the social aspect of the whole thing, and they see value in doing that. So I think it's a lot more about the horizontal dimension of religion than it's about the vertical dimension of religion, and they just see the value. And that's also, by the way, why they join the Elks and the Moose and the Legion and the bowling league, and their kids are in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, because there's a value in connectedness, and religion's a great way to generate that value.
By the way,
Dad, do you want to speak about your membership in the Elks?
You want me to do my thing? Aruga. Yes. In St. Petersburg, Florida, we did not have a swimming pool. And if you didn't have a swimming pool in Southwest Florida, you weren't cool, both literally and figuratively. And so my wife said, we need a pool. I said, we can't afford it. I'm a pastor. And found out that if you join the Elks, they have a pool. And so I got someone to sponsor me, to introduce me to the Elks. I went through the rite of initiation. I'm sure it's totally pagan. Have no idea what I was saying, but I guess I don't know. I still have my ID card, so I guess I'm still an Elk. Now, off into a more important subject. Sam and I just finished a conversation that included Eddie Moody. Eddie Moody is the executive director of Free Will Baptist. Love the Free Will Baptist. Appreciate the Free Will Baptist. And Eddie is just, he's a prince among princes. So we're talking, and he was talking about the demographics of Free Will Baptist. He reads you all the time. He reads about the younger generation. Then he read about the fact that they are on the lower end of socioeconomic status. Free Will Baptists are. Yet, they are some of the most faithful attenders. Now, is that an outlier? Am I reading that wrong? Tell me where I am.
The Free Will Baptists are an outlier, Tom. That's typically not what's interesting. That I wrote a piece today about the socioeconomic status of a bunch of different religious groups. Because, like, you guys hear like the main line in your head, like Episcopalians, what do you think? Rich or poor?
Oh, rich.
Rich, right? United Methodists.
Rich.
How about Southern Baptists?
Lower middle.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're
Fair
talking
enough.
socioeconomics. Okay, sorry.
Lower middle, right? Here's what's funny. You know what group's in the top 5 on socioeconomic status? Non-denominational evangelicals.
Okay.
They're like right below like the 4 or 5 big mainline traditions.
They're
So
the
like
new mainline.
they're in some ways they are the new mainline, right? Like they're the people down the road who go to the mega church like once a month, right? Don't really have membership there. They're just like hanging out there because it's like what everybody else does. Like they've really become the new mainline in some ways. Now, not theologically, but like socially, they're the new mainline. And I think that's what's really changing in American life is like we used to have this like sort of landed class of American religion. It was called the mainline, Episcopalians and Methodists, your Presbyterians. They've really receded in most communities. And what's taken their place is a lot of these non-denominational, typically mega church people. Like you drive the parking lot and you look around, you see a lot of, Denali's and Mercedes and BMWs in suburban areas. Like, I think in some ways it's become like the cool thing to do is become like marginally, now not too committed, right? Because your friends won't allow, like they won't abide by that being like really committed, but like kind of committed to the mega church is like the new mainline Protestant Christianity in America.
So how do we account for the decline of cultural Christianity, which to me is very clear that cultural Christianity has faded away, and yet we still have this institutional connection between highly educated people in the church? So help me understand why this part remains, and yet cultural Christianity has all but faded away in most communities.
I think for a lot, and I'm writing a lot more about this. I wrote a post called "Dropping Out of Everything," which is about people who, like, on the religion question. And this is something really, like, you got to think about this, like, methodologically. You're given like 12 options on the religion question from Protestant, Catholic, Mormon, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, and then it goes atheist, agnostic, nothing in particular. Those are the last 3 options. Okay, if you pick atheist or agnostic, you're affirming something, right? Like, I'm part of this group, this social group. If you say you're nothing in particular, you are basically looking at all those options and saying none of the above. And that's actually the fastest growing part of American religion is nope, just flat out nope, right? Like, I'm not Protestant, I'm not Catholic, I'm not Jewish, but I'm also not atheist or agnostic either. We call those people non-religious, by the way. Atheist agnostics are secular, and nothing in particular are non-religious because they're defined by what they're not by what they are, and they're not, right? They're not this and they're not that. I think what we're seeing is educated people are realizing they got to be something. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to still attach yourself to something. And a growing number of people, by the way, amongst Generation Z, the most popular response option to that question is nothing in particular. 1/3 of Generation Z now calls themselves nothing in particular. Only 8% are atheist and 7% are agnostic. So they're twice as likely to say nothing in particular as they are to say atheist or agnostic, because what they're doing is just basically pulling away. And by the way, the people who are the least politically active are nothing in particular. People with the lowest education are nothing in particular. The people most likely to describe themselves as other on surveys are nothing in particular, right? So I think what we're seeing is like a lot of people are going, wow, society doesn't work for me. I'm done. I'm pulling away from cultural Christianity, any type of religion entirely. I'm really not engaged in politics or education or society. And then you still got a core group of people who are doing well educationally, income-wise, organizationally, trust-wise. They're sticking there, and this growing number of people are falling away. And honestly, from a pastoral perspective and a social science perspective, that's a really troubling facet of American society, of these people who are just disconnected and disaffected and feel like no one looks for them, no one looks out for them, and no one cares for them. Like, that's a real despair is really problematic for a functioning society. And I think we're seeing the rise of just abject despair is unbelievable, especially amongst younger people and lower educated people.
Wow. That is fascinating stuff.
So that's why you got me on the show, Tom.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, Sam.
So there are fewer, the portion of people who have the education are attached to the institution. But because we have a growing base of people that really just don't have the education, we're seeing what the data shows is there's a big pool of people that are just fading away from everything.
Yup.
And those who just happen to get the education, which is a much smaller portion, are the ones that are connected. So this has all sorts of implications for the future.
Mhm.
And one, I think the church does have a lot of answers, and we've got to figure out a way to reconnect people to the institution. But there is also the danger of becoming elitist uh, as a church. So,
Yes.
you know, it could almost become, because there are institutionally connected people who have all these academic achievements, um, you're going to distance yourself even further from
Mhm.
those who really do need to be connected to the church. And that's part of what we do at Church Answers to help resolve that problem. But do you have any thoughts on that?
So I wrote probably the post I'm most proud of it on my Substack is called "Religion is a Luxury Good,"
I remember
which
that
is
one.
just the idea that like that one to me, like it's going to weave through the book I'm writing right now, because I think it's just so incredibly important. It's the idea that, like, to be in church, you have to be educated, have middle class income between $60,000 and $100,000 a year, married with children. So, like, religion has become a thing that people who have done everything right do, and people who do anything wrong fall off the path and don't come anymore. Like, I don't think any church, well, not any, I don't think most churches are actively turning away high school dropouts or people who are on food stamps or on welfare. I don't think that's happening. And it shouldn't happen, by the way, because that's not what the church is supposed to be. But I do think if you're a person of a certain stature in life, you walk into a building and you see a lot of people dressed differently than you do, driving cars that look much differently than you drive, knowing that you can't contribute to the community in that organization like everyone else can. I just think that subtly turns people away and saying, this place is not for me. And I think a lot of these, a lot of these non-denoms, God bless them, they're growing, but the kind of people they're growing with are honestly suburban, white, upper middle class, educated professionals.
Bingo.
And that's and I think it's like, oh great, look at all these like prim and proper white people, with college degrees sitting in the pews. But what about the people of color? Right, the people making $40,000 a year, the single mothers, the single fathers, right? They walk in that church and go, it's all families. I don't fit in this space. And I think,
Right.
unfortunately, because that's where Christianity is growing, everyone's adopting that same model. I've been writing a lot about this, by the way. If you see where these church planting networks are planting, they're planting in the exact same places, and they're exactly the places I just described. White outer ring suburbs looking for upper middle class, college educated professional people, white collar people. And they're growing very quickly, but they're also leaving a whole generation of people behind. And by the way, the share of Americans who fit those qualifications I'm just describing is shrinking every year. So like the market you're chasing is actually getting smaller. So like I think there are examples of churches that have done a good job of becoming multiracial, right, and multi-generational and the whole SES spectrum. I think Steve Furtick's church, Elevation in Charlotte's done a great job of that. I think actually Joel Osteen's church, we can critique his theology all you want. You look at his audience, it's racially diverse. Like you're seeing some churches do it, but the average church is not doing it. And the problem is, we know that people who go to church have higher incomes than people who don't, and actually it gives you a better chance of climbing the economic ladder by being part of a religious organization. So now they don't even have there's no rungs to the ladder to climb up for those people because they're not in those spaces, and they're being pushed out by the fact that church has become so homogenous in such one note. And I think, listen, my arguments are always, it's bad for church, but it's also bad for society. It's bad for democracy. It's bad for us as people. And I think that's the argument that, by the way, outside of the church is going to get a lot more traction than, oh, religion's declining and that's bad. No. It's like religion's declining and it's hurting us. Like as a country, you need to realize that it's not just a religious argument. I think that's the argument people need to hear, especially like the landed class, the influential class. They need to hear it's not about Jesus all the time. It's about democracy too, and tolerance and compromise and all the things that we want. And I think we're careening towards a path where we just don't like each other very much because we don't see each other very much because we used to see each other at places like the Elks and church, and now we don't, and that is bad.
That's a good way to end it.
I think so.
On a positive note, yeah, awesome.
I love it when the Burge gets all wound up and has a lot to say. So, fascinating discussion. What I love about what you do, Ryan, is you bring the data and you show things as they are. And it's very important for all of us to grasp this data because in this particular case with educational attainment and church attendance, it's counterintuitive. It's not what people have been told. So it's good to know the truth. And it's also good to know Tithely, sponsor of today's episode.
What a
You should go check
segue.
them
You
out.
are so smooth. What a
Good
segue.
job.
I've done this a few times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they already are serving 40,000 churches. They have the team that is equipped to serve you. They can do child check-in, church apps, volunteer management. They are most known for online and text giving and things like that, but they have a lot more that they do. You can sign up for free. So go to tithely.com and also get that State of the Church giving report. We'll put a link in the show notes for that. But go to tithely.com and give them a quick look. You can, if you sign up, start taking donations in just 5 minutes. No monthly fees, no contracts. You can't beat that. Well, we will have another Burge report coming out soon. And guess what? We're going to have a doozy. So be looking in November.
November 15th to be exact.
November 15th to be specific. Yes. Who's really attending online church? We'll answer that question.
I can't wait for this one. Ryan is always so superlative, so ingenious, so bright, so insightful. This is above all. It's going to be fun.
Thanks,
we'll see you in
guys.
the next episode.
Bye.